ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaste my dear friends, this is video number 10 on Viveka Chudamani of Adi Sankaracharya. This video starts with stanza number 120. Topic is the causal body, its nature. अव्यक्तमेत त्रिगुणै निरुक्तं तत्कारणं नाम शरीरम आत्मनः सुषुप्तिरेतस्य विभक्तव्यवस्था परलीन सर्वेन्द्रिय बुद्धिवृत्ति. This unmanifest, described as a combination of all three gunas, is the causal body of the individual. Its spatial state is deep sleep, in which all the functions of the mind, intellect, and the sense organs are totally suspended. Stanza number 121. सर्व प्रकार परमेस्ति प्रशांति बीर्जात्मना शिथित्रेव बुद्धे सुसुप्ति रेतस्य किल प्रतीति किंचन वेदिति जगत प्रसिद्धे. The mind remains in a subtle seed-like form in deep sleep, which is the state of complete cessation of all kinds of perceptions. Indeed, the universal experience in this state is, I did not know anything. So far, the three gunas have been explained exhaustively by Acharya Sankara. Now the causal body, called the unmanifest, is taken up for a detailed discussion. The causal body consists of the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas, in their manifest state. When the individual withdraws himself from the waking and dream states of consciousness, he is said to be in the deep sleep state. The waking state and dream state experiences are present in the deep sleep state in the unmanifest or the seed form. The seeds, when manifested at the subtle and gross levels, give rise to the dream state and the waking state respectively. In deep sleep, it is like the seed going back to the seed. When a man is in deep sleep, all the activities of his intellect, mind, and sense organs are temporarily at rest. This state is known as the state of the unmanifest, avyakta, because neither reality nor the world of objects, emotions, thoughts is manifest and available for his cognition. In short, it is the state of non-apprehension of reality. The experience of the individual in this state is I do not know. Complete ignorance is the characteristics of this state. For where the intellect is arrested, the intellect projected objective world will not be there. The total absence of all kinds of knowledge is directly experienced in deep sleep by all creatures everywhere. This level of pure and complete ignorance and total non apprehension is the causal body. Not self description. Stanza number 122 and 23. First 122. देह इंद्रिय प्राण मनो हम दाह है सर्वे विकारा विषया सुखाद्य है व्योमादि भूताने अखिलम च विश्व म्यक्त पर्यंतमिदम हन्यात्मा. The body, sense organs, pranas, mind and ego, etc., and all their modifications, the sense objects and their pleasures, etc., the gross elements such as ether, etc., the whole universe up to the unmanifest, these constitute the non-self. Stanza number 123. Maya Maya karyam sarvam medadi dehe paryantam asdi daman ataman tatvam vidhi tvam maru mari chika kalpam. Everything is due to the effect of Maya from Mahat down to the gross body. Know thou that these and Maya itself are the not self, therefore they are unreal like the mirage waters in desert. So far, all that constitutes the unatman, not self, has been explained. All equipments, body, deha, sense organs, indriya, physiological functions, prana, mind, mana, and the ego, am, all modifications, vikara, like pain and pleasure, etc. Sukhdaya, all sense objects, Vishya, the gross elements, Bhutani, and the perceptible world of objects, emotions and thoughts, Vishwa up to the unmanifest, Avyakta, all are the not self, Anatman. The entire world within and around up to the Vasanas, that is the world of matter which is other than the self. The Atma is Anatman. This Anatman is the creation of Maya due to non-apprehension of reality. Maya is that which is not. All things created out of a thing which exists not must be unreal, entirely non-existent, though they are all non-existent for the time being. They are perceptible to us in our own delusion, hence they are mere delusions. Though the mirage in the desert can be seen, it has no reality. Similarly, the entire range of things consisting of unatman are unreal, mere whips of the mind's imagination. In order to know reality, all that is unreal has to be rejected and so transcended. The next verse onwards, Sankara explains the nature of the self, the Atma, which is to be known and attained. Stanza the self, its nature. Stanza number 124 and up to 135. Stanza 124. Ath te san pravakshami savrupam paramatmana yad vijjay naro bandhan mukta kevalya mashnute. Now I will tell you of the real nature of the Supreme Self, realizing which man is freed from all his personality encumbrances, bondages, and attains liberation. Gita enumerates them as the Aksetra and gives the following list. Gita chapter 13 verse number 5 and 6. The great elements, the ego, the intellect, and also the unmanifest, the 10 senses, the mind, the 5 objects of the senses, desire, hatred, pleasure, pain, the aggregate intelligence, fortitude, the etc. with its modifications has thus been briefly described. To mark the conclusion of the previous idea and to inaugurate a new theme of discussion, Sankara says, I shall now very clearly explain to you the nature of the Supreme Self, having explained the not self. Once the self is fully apprehended subjectively, man's personality will be released from all persecutions of matter with its low demands. He will be released from the bondages created by his own unintelligent and pain giving identifications. Not only will he be liberated from his unnecessary sorrows, but he will also come to experience the pure oneness of his own self. Kaivalya is the state of liberation from the BMT, PFT, and OET. When one is released from all the equipments and their objects, pure knowledge is experienced. According to the rishis, this is Kaivalya. Sitting on a rock, you can see the movement of a river, but if you are on the river itself, you will see no movement. The observer must be motionless in order to observe movement. No mutation can be recognized without reference to an immutable factor. As the pure subject, no more are there any limitations in one. Such a person is called a seer. We must note very carefully that he is not seeing anything, he is a mere seer. There is nothing for him to see. This state is being described in great detail in the following verses. Stanza 125. Asti kaschit swam nityam aham priyatan alambanam अवस्थात्रय साक्षी सन पंचकोश विलक्षण. Something there is which is the absolute entity, the eternal substratum for the very awareness of the ego. It is the witness of the three states and it is distinct from all the five seeds. When I say I am happy, I am unhappy, I am joyful, I am sorrowful, I am educated, I am worried. In all these conditions, the external world around me has changed. The conditions of the body, of the mind, of the intellect, and of the external world of objects have changed, but all through these changes, the subjective sense of I-ness has remained changeless. In all conditions, good, bad, or indifferent, this something in our life within us has remained unchanged, and this is generally indicated by the word I. The subject I remains a changeless entity, common in all changes, experiencing them all. In each one of us, it takes up different attitudes at different places and at different times, such as childhood, youth, and old age, waking, dream, and deep sleep, happy, unhappy, etc. In all such conditions, behind the very subject I, there is a common changeless factor, the consciousness. This factor is by its own nature formless and changeless, depending upon which we have the constant experience of I, our individuality. This subject in each one of us is a mere witness of the three states of consciousness, the waking, dream, and deep sleep states. In the waking state, it is the waker. In deep and in dream, it is again I, the dreamer. And when fast asleep too, it is I, the deep sleeper. In these states of consciousness, the I remains a mere witness. It neither undergoes any changes characteristic of these states, nor does it have any share in them. This I-ness gains vivid experiences of all the three different states. Let me give you an example to clarify the idea. I, the individual, going to Surat, Ahmedabad and Bombay, gathered to myself three different experiences at the three different places. Let us say at Surat I was loved, at Ahmedabad I was honored, and at Bombay I was insulted. Surat is not Ahmedabad. Surat and Ahmedabad are not Bombay. I was not at Surat, Ahmedabad, and Bombay at one and the same time. The experiences of three different places at the three different times are different, yet all these experiences are mine because I was the common factor in all the three places and at all the three times. This is so in the waking, dream, and deep sleep states also. The waker himself becomes the dreamer and the deep sleeper and gains the experience of the dream and the deep sleep. But during these changes in the states of consciousness, he himself never undergoes any change but remains as mere witness. Atman being the witness of the three states of consciousness, it is indeed something other than the five seats. The food seat, the vital air seat, the mental seat, the intellectual seat, and the bliss seat. The Atman is not identified with and therefore is never limited by any of these seats. It is something other than them, knowing them and their individual involvements in the world around and within. Stanza 126. Yo vijanati saklam jagrat swapan susuptisu buddhi tavirti sadbhavam bhav mahamityam. That which knows everything that happens in the waking, dream and deep sleep states, that which is aware of the presence or absence of the mind and its functions, that which is the essence behind the ego, that is this. This verse expresses the import of some of the famous Shruti passages such as those found in the Kena and Brihadaranyaka Upanishads. The faculty in me because of which I am able to know constantly all my experiences of waking, dream, and deep sleep is called the Atma or Self. By this faculty, I am not only aware of the world of objects around me, but I am also equally aware of the equipments of knowledge within me and their main functions. I know my intellect, the instruments with which I know other things, all my inner equipments, antahkarana, are also objects of my experience from the standpoint of the self. Canopnist, that which cannot be seen by the eye, but by which the eyes are able to see, know that alone as Brahma and not this which people worship here. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Ne drashte drashtaram pashe ne srute srotaram renuyat ne marte mantratmam manviya ne vidyate vidyataram vijaniyah esate atma sarvantar ato anne dartam. You cannot see that which is the witness of vision. You cannot hear that which is the hearer of the hearing. You cannot think that which is the thinker of thought. You cannot know that which is the knower of knowledge. This is yourself that is within all everything else, but this is perishable. My mind and intellect, where all activities are disturbances, virtis. I am aware of them all. When there are no mental disturbances, I am equally aware of the absence of all births as in deep sleep. The agitations and also the absence of agitations are known. I am aware of not only my intellect and the thoughts in it, but also of the absence of thoughts. This knower I is this, the great consciousness to be realized as the subjective essence. In each one of us, it is this consciousness alone which knows constantly the world of objects around us, as well as the intellect and its thoughts, nay, even the absence of thoughts. Remember, the intellect can investigate only the presence of things. Consciousness can illumine their absence as well. This grand knowing principle constantly enlivens us. It is the self we talk of as this, the subject. Stanza number 127. Ye pashyati swam sarvam yam ne pashyati kaschan. Yasche chetarayati buddhyadi ne tadyam chetiyatayam. That which sees all but which no one can see, that which illumines the intellect, etc., but which they cannot illumine, that is this. That which by its own light sees everything at all times is the knowing principle. This is the same truth in all physical bodies, so every body's experience is the experience of the divine. Whenever anybody knows anything, he knows it because of the same knowing principle. That is why this principle is also called the all knower. Consciousness knows through me my experiences, through you your experiences, and through her her experiences. Thus, through every physical body and every mind and intellect at all times, it illumines everything with its awareness. But consciousness cannot be known through any of these equipments. The sense organs, the mind, etc., are all made of matter. Therefore, they are inert. That which gives illumination to these equipments to function in their respective fields, and that which is not illumined by any of these equipments, that is this Atma, this Self. Consciousness is the source of all sentiency. This great reality lends sentiency to all matter vestures, but the matter vestures have no sentiency of their own to lend to the consciousness. The Upanishad rishis roar out that this whole world is illumined with his light. Stanza number 128. Yen Visvam idam vyaptam yamne vyapnoti kischan abhar updim sarvam yam bhant manu bhat yam. That by which this universe is pervaded, but which is not pervaded by anything, which when it shines, the entire universe shines as its reflection, that is this. That by which all this is pervaded, yet nothing pervades it. We are not able to understand that since our mind is not tuned up to its frequency. Our mind is tuned up to the frequency of OET. That is why we are not able to recognize it ordinarily. Even though it is present everywhere, it is all pervasive. Pervasiveness is the nature of subtlety. That which is subtler than the subtlest must necessarily be all pervading. The all pervading cannot be pervaded by anything else. All that exists does so only because of its support. If my ears and eyes have the capacity of hearing and seeing, it is only because of the consciousness. They function because of this light of consciousness which shines through them. These verses explain the Atma and point it out to be the subjective consciousness in our bosoms. Therefore, these verses end with the course that is this. This indicates nearness. So it has been brought within our bosom at a point nearest to us. This. Stanza number 129. यस्य सन्निधि मात्रेण देह इंद्रिय मनोधिय विषयेषु सबकियेषु वर्तन्ते प्रेरिता इव. Mundakopnishad. There the sun does not shine, nor the moon, nor the stars, these lightnings also do not shine. How then can this earthly fire? Verily everything shines after him who shines. This whole world is illumined with his light. That by whose very presence the body and the sense organs, the mind and the intellect perform their respective functions like a team of servants prompted by their master. The Atma is that factor by whose mere presence the gross, the subtle, and the causal bodies function in their respective fields. Here it is to be understood that Om, the Self, is not doing anything, it is not the doer. By its mere presence, the matter equipments function. Purusha only looks at Prakriti, Prakriti gets enlivened and does everything. When Krishna is nearby, the gopis get excited and dance about. The Sariravirti, Indriyavirti, Manovirti are all to be understood as the gopis. The gopis look after the cows and tend them. Similarly, the virtis tend the cattle in us sense organs with their sense objects. By the mere presence of consciousness, the sense organs, the pranas, the mind, the intellect, even the vasanas function in their respective fields without interfering with each other. Had consciousness not been present, none of them would have functioned. Thus, it appears that the consciousness prompts the equipments. They function as through prompted by the self. All living creatures, consciously or unconsciously, draw their energy from the same light and each one acts according to his own vasanas. The sun does not interfere with anyone's activities. It is not even conscious that so many living creatures are drawing their nourishment from it. In the absence in the absence of the sun, all activities end, but the sun has nothing to do with the activities that go on. Similarly, the body draws its energy from the consciousness and the individual according to his vasanas. Consciousness which lends its energy never interferes with the activities of the individual, yet in its absence no activity would be possible. Atambodha, stanza number 20, depending upon the energy or vitality of consciousness, Atam Chaitanya, the body, senses, mind, and intellect engage themselves in their respective activities just as men work depending upon the light of the sun. Stanza number 130. अहंकार आदि देहांता विषयाश्च सुखाद्य वेदन्ते घटवद येन नित्य बोध स्वरूपिणा. That because of which everything The ego, the body, the sense objects and their pleasures, etc., are known as clearly as a jar is of the nature of eternal knowledge. From the subtlest, innermost concept of I down to the physical body, its world of objects, and the subtle body and its objects, all these are known by a knower. The gross body and its objects constituted of the world around, and the subtle body and its objects consisting of pleasures and pains, attachments and revulsions, are all known just as a pot or a jar is clearly known in our everyday life. A pot or a jar has not any light of its own. It is only seen because of some other source of light. All pots and jars are illumined by sunlight, which is something other than them. Similarly, all things that are cognized as objects are cognized in the light of consciousness. This consciousness is of the nature of knowledge, which is the nature of the self. This is the great truth which illumines everything. The instruments of experiences and experiences themselves are illumined by it all at all times. The verse is hinting at the pregnant suggestions found in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, chapter 4, part 3, stanza number 23. Yadvai tan pashyati, pashyan vai tanne pashyati, nahi drashti drushto viparlopo vidyate vinasitvat netu tad dvityamasti tato anne dvibhaktam yat pashyet. That it does not see in that state is because though seeing them it does not see, for the vision of the witness can never be lost because it is imperishable. But there is not that second thing separates from it which it can see. What is the great truth? Stanza number 131. एसो अंतरात्मा पुरुषः पुराणो निरंतर अखंड सुखान अनुभूति सदैक रूपम प्रतिबोध मात्रो विनयशिता वागस्वश्चरन्ति. This great truth is the innermost self, the ancient Purusha, whose essential nature is the constant experience of infinite bliss, which is ever the same. Yet it constantly gets reflected through different mental modifications and commanded by it. The sense organs and the pranas perform their functions. All that we can say about this great Atma, the Purusha, who dwells in the subtle body, is that it is an experience of constant unbroken joy. This is because the sources of sorrows, the body, the mind, and the intellect are not there. Lesser the mental agitations, more is the joy. When the body is transcended, no sorrow is experienced. Thus, in terms of the mind, we can only say that this Atma is of the nature of constant bliss. It is a unique transcendental experience because in it there are no mental agitations. When a tiny little girl asks about marriage, all that can be said to her in terms of her understanding is that when a little girl gets married, her husband will get her all the dolls in the market so that she could play with them all day long. Only when she grows up will she understand that it is not doll's play, that it is life consisting of more serious stuff. Similarly, in terms of the experiences of the student, to enable him to understand, it is said here that the Atman is of the nature of constant bliss. It is because he is at that time so entirely wrapped up in the BMI and all their pains and tragedies. This Atma is also said to be the innermost self. Inner in Vedanta means subtle. Therefore, when we say innermost, we mean subtlest, that is all pervading. This is all pervading Atma is one without a second and is of the nature of pure existence. It is not the existence of a thing, it is existence itself. It is always of one nature. Sada ekta rupaha, that of pure existence only, that which is always of one nature never changes. Hence, all the pluralistic phenomena are only delusory misconceptions which we have to project upon. Due to our misconceptions, when we see a ghost on a post, what really exists is the post. The post alone is the only real thing at all times. Similarly, pure existence alone is the only nature of the self. Again, it is the consciousness which constantly knows things. Hence, knowledge of a thing minus the thing is pure knowledge, the self. Thus, consciousness is subtly indicated as objectless awareness. Prompted by this consciousness, everything functions. This has been explained in an earlier verse. It is that factor which was even before creations and is still serving as the very substratum for the entire universe of things and beings and their happenings. Stanza number 132. अत्रैव सत्त्वात्मनि देगुहायः मव्याकृताकाश ओषत्प्रकाशः आकाश उच्चैः रविवत्प्रकाशते सवतेजसा विश्वम् इदं प्रकाशयन्. In this very body, in a mind full of sattva, in the secret cave of the intellect, in the atmosphere of the unmanifest, the Atma of captivating glory shines like the sun high in the sky, illumining this universe by its very effulgence. Here itself, in this very body, not in Kasi or Rameswaram, not in Jerusalem or Makkah, but in one's own mind, which is full of sattva, meaning in a pure and quiet mind, in the cave of the intellect, in the space of this unmanifest, this self shines forth. This consciousness can be apprehended in the unfathomed depths of one's personality as a splendid light divine only when one's mind has been quietened. Since everything is illumined by it, it is conceived of as light, a light without properties. The sun illumines the entire world of plurality from its place high up in the sky. Similarly, the Atma in the inner space of the heart illumines all the experiences within. When our attention is on the sunlight, no objects can be perceived, and if the attention is on the objects, the sunlight is not perceived. It, if our attention is on the Atma, the world of OET is not cognized, but if it is on the OET, the reality is not experienced. When the object is removed, light is not perceived as such. It is only intuitively experienced. Stanza number 133. ज्ञाता मनो अहंकर्ति विक्रियाणाम देह इंद्रिय प्राण कीर्ति क्रियाणाम अयोग अग्निवत्तान अनुवर्तमानो न चेष्टते नो विकारोति किंचन. The knower of the modifications of the mind and the ego and the activities of the body, the sense organs, and the pranas, which apparently take their forms like the fire in a ball of iron, is the self which neither acts nor changes in the least. The Atma is the knower of the experiences within of all joys and sorrows, which are the conditions of the mind and the intellect. It is the knowing principle in the absence of which nothing can be known. The ego in the individual is the experiencer and doer entity in him. This ahankar is the experiencer of all that happens within and the doer of all activities without. Ahankar, having the sense of doership and enjoyership, is the Jiva. Brahma, functioning through the BMI, expresses as the Jiva. In fact, it is not the doer or enjoyer of anything. When 10 pieces of iron of different shapes are put into the fire and removed only when they are red hot, they appear as the cubical fire, rectangular fire, triangular fire, elliptical fire, etc. The fire itself has no shape, but it takes the shape of the iron piece. Similarly, the light of consciousness appears to function according to the modifications of the equipment. Sunlight itself has no shape, but it takes the shape of the waves, the ripples, and the bubbles in the sea. Its shape depends upon the object it illumines at any given time. When consciousness illumines the experiences of the mind, it seems to gather to itself the attitude of the enjoyer. When it illumines the activities of the world outside, it appears to take the attitude of the doer. In fact, it is not involved in anything. When it appears to be so, it is but an illusion. Stanza number 134. Ne jayate, no miryate, ne vardhate, ne aksiyate, no vikaroti nityah, valye manevi, vapusyasmi, liyate kumbh ivambram swim. Neither it is born, nor does it die, neither does it grow, nor does it decay. Being eternal, it does not undergo any change. Even when this body is destroyed, it does not cease to exist. It is like the space in the jar that is broken. It is independent of the jar. This great Atma is neither born nor does it die. The bubble is born and the bubble dies. The air in the bubble is neither born nor does it die when the bubble bursts. Similarly, the PFT is born, not the reality, the self. It is meaningless to complain that my consciousness was dull yesterday and that today it is bright. For consciousness never increases nor decreases. It is only the rise and the fall of ignorance that causes an apparent wailing of consciousness and a sudden blaze of its effulgence. When the mind is full of attachment, hate, anger, greed, and delusion, the awareness becomes dull. When these weaknesses are less, more light of consciousness is manifest in the bosom. Consciousness is the one reality at all times. When the thickness of vasanas is increased, its splendor in us seems to be dimmed. The Atman, the self, never gets modified. The feeling of I in childhood, youth, and old age remains the same. The body, the mind, and the intellect are modified from time to time, but not the Atman, which quietly illumines all the changes in all the equipments. The first two lines of this verse contains the definition of the term eternal, nitya, that which is never born, nor dies, nor grows, nor reduces, nor ever is modified, is infinite, eternal, nitya. Conversely, that which is finite and ephemeral, anitya, is that which is born, that which grows, decays, and undergoes different modification. Thus, this Atma is eternal, and even when this body falls off, the self does not perish. Just like the space in the pot, when the pot is broken, the pot space is not broken. When the walls are pulled down, the room space becomes the space around. Similarly, when the body, gross, subtle, and causal, is destroyed, the Atma is not destroyed. That which was the consciousness in the bosom of the individual merges back as it were into the consciousness ever present everywhere at all times. Stanza number 135. प्रकृति विकृति भिन्न शुद्ध बोध स्वभाव सद सदी दम शेषम भाषयन्ति विशेष विलसति परमात्मा जागृत आदि अवस्था सब महमिति साक्षात साक्षी रूपेण बुद्धि different from Prakriti and its modifications is the supreme self of the nature of pure knowledge. It is absolute and directly manifest the entire gross and subtle universe as the very essence behind the steady sense of egoism. It manifests itself as the witness of the intellect, the determining faculty in man. The self has been indicated here again as that which is other than Prakriti and its modifications. These are constituted of the BMI, PFT, OET. This supreme self is of the nature of pure knowledge. Consciousness is the illuminator of all that can be said to be this. All things cognized can be classified as gross and subtle. Gross things are those which can be seen outside. This chair, this room, this money, this sun, this moon, etc. Subtle things are those which are experienced within, subjectively perceived. This perception, this emotion, this thought, etc. Consciousness illumines them all without any exception, but it itself is without any change, nirviseshaha, immutable. Again, from the standpoint of the ego, it can be said that this consciousness revels in the three states of waking, dream, and deep sleep, meaning there is no time when or no place where consciousness is not. In the waking and dream states, it illumines the waking and the dream objects, and in the deep sleep state, it illumines the absence of the entire range of objects known to us in the waking and the dream states. This Atman then revels in all the three states of consciousness as the ego, the I, I. In the waking state, I am conscious of my waking world. In the dream state, I am conscious of my dream world. And in the deep sleep state, I am conscious of the absence of everything. So, this consciousness in us, the Paramatman, expresses at all times in the form of I, but never gets involved in the happenings around. It is the knowing principle, the witness observing all thoughts and experiences of the mind and the intellect. Advice for self control. Stanza number 136. Niyamit man samum tvam sauma swam atam anatam ne mehmiti saksad buddhi prasadat जन मिन मरण तरंगा पारंग संसार सिंधु परतर भव कृतार्थो ब्रह्म रूपेण संस्था with a regulated mind and a purified intellect realize your own self while in this body, identify yourself with it and cross the shoreless ocean of sansara whose waves are births and deaths. Become blessed by getting firmly established in Brahma, which is your own essence. In these verses, Sankara the poet and Sankara the philosopher revels together, each outshining the other. A well controlled, regulated mind here indicates a purified mind, that is, a mind which has withdrawn itself from its involvements with the OET, having accomplished this through worship or meditation, upasana. A pure mind is one made relatively calm by meditation. It is to be remembered here that mind and intellect are the same. Only in their functions do they differ. Mental agitations veil the intellect. This veiling is called Maya, Vasana, Avidya, causal, body, etc. They are all synonymous. Due to Avidya, the intellect is not able to see the truth clearly. When truth When truth is not apprehended, misapprehensions are generated by the unhealthy intellect. When the mind's agitations, vikshepa, are quietened through upasana, the veiling avarna of the intellect also lifts and buddhi becomes quiet. As a result of mental quietude, when the intellect becomes bright, it is able to apprehend the self. The self is thus apprehended as I am this. One comes to experience it intimately as the very subjective essence in oneself. He who so long considered himself to be the body, the mind, or the intellect now experiences I am not the body, nor I am the mind, nor the intellect, but I am this, the self, who is the illuminator of all these three equipments and their modifications. This experience is not through any medium, it is not through the medium of the intellect, it is not a mediate knowledge, it is apprehended as immediate knowledge. For example, nobody need tell you that you are Mr. So and so. You know who you are, Mr. Mrs. Miss. Even when you are in pitch darkness, thus the self is realized as an immediate knowledge as one's own self. Mediate knowledge is that which is gained through the instruments of the sense organs, the mind, and the intellect. Immediate knowledge is that to know which no instrument is necessary. It is the knowledge of one's own self. When you wake up from a dream, you do not see the waker, you become the waker. The experience at the time is I am the waker, Mr. So and not that fool who was dreaming the horrors of his dreams only a moment ago. Yes, I am this, not that, which I, in my delusion, thought myself to be. At this moment, we all live identified with the BMI, and we have the experience of I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect. Quieten the mind and transcending its limitations, come to apprehend this great truth, the self. May you feel fulfilled thus. Fulfillment, Kritrvaha, is the Kritarta, is the joyous feeling of having done what has to be done. When what has to be done has been done, what had to be accomplished has been accomplished. No more is there any tyrant in the form of vasanas who occupies our bosom, making more and more demands upon us. When the vasanas are all ended, no more are there any desires. Nothing more is needed to contribute to one's happiness. May you thus become of the nature of Brahma, the reality, by crossing the ocean of change consisting of the waves of births and deaths. Buddhi Virti in Vedanta means all activities emanating from a living organism. If we reflect sufficiently upon what we have read so far, one doubt might still linger in us. How does the infinite Lord, who is all knowledge, get into this avidya and become an abject slave, a helpless victim of the world of objects and their tragic play? How does one get so strongly BMI conditioned? This explained in the following two verses. They are both very, very important. Only if you reflect long on these suggestive verses will you understand them and get the maximum benefit out of them. The more you chew on these verses, the more will you experience the essence of understanding. What is bondage? The reply. Stanza number 137, 138, 139, and 142. I think I should conclude this video. These verses 137 to 142 I will include in the video number 11 on Viveka Chudamani of Adi Sankaracharya. Thank you. Namaskar.